It's basically a set of procedures. It's an intensive version of gardening, meant to work in small, very tightly controlled environments. It was designed by an engineer named Mel. You remember Mel's last name?
No, I just
Okay, I've forgotten Mel's last name. He basically made a book in the mid-70s, I think, called Square Foot Gardening. He looked at various types of common gardening that were common and looked for inefficiencies in them and tried to improve the process on his own. And one of the biggest differences that he saw was that rather than thinking in rows to create gardens, he was thinking in squares and learning to populate those squares completely. It intended to be done completely in raised boxes. One of the reasons why I chose it is because when I moved to Montreal, I didn't know what the quality of the soil. It turns out I live in actually a pretty good area, but I chose to build above the soil rather than using the soil that was present because I just didn't know how to get it tested. All the boxes are built as 4-foot square boxes, so they can be longer, but they can't be longer and wider. The intention is that you can always reach the center of the box from one side or the other, because you never step in these beds. It stays loose and friable, and it's very you basically make your own soil, which is the next portion. Rather than using soil or dirt of any kind, it's a special mix called Mel's Mix, made out of blended compost, which is either compost you make yourself out of multiple variety of kitchen waste and yard waste, things like that, or by going out and finding different sources of compost and blending them together. 1/3 peat moss, which we've discussed before, and 1/3 coarse vermiculite. And basically that's what you grow in instead. That's your growing medium. Rather, there's no dirt in it. It's entirely a made medium. Because they're small boxes, it's not terribly expensive, but it's not cheap either. After you've built these boxes, essentially you break them up into a grid, 1 by 1 squares, and that is a map that you plant by. It helps to, because of the nature of the planting, the way it's 2-dimensional rather than 1-dimensional, having those grids in place allows you, makes it very easy to figure out where to plant and where crops should appear. When you care for a square foot garden, you tend to only from the aisles. You never step onto it. Essentially, this medium is going to last a very long time. And one of the reasons why it lasts so long, that vermiculite in it, is that with no compaction, we talked earlier about the necessary balance between water and air for your roots. Vermiculite is actually really good at maintaining that as long as you don't disturb it too much. Perlite's another possible example of the same sort of material. You're going to select your plants, and according to how large the plant is, whether it's a large plant, a small plant, somewhere in between, you're going to decide how many plants are going to fit in each one of those squares. Okay, and we'll get into spacings in a minute to see what they are. When you're planting, because you have very tight controls on where the plants are located and how many you're putting out, you're not sowing seeds in a row, like you typically see. These are actually, when I plant, typically I put 1 seed. I don't thin. I put 1 seed in each hole. Seeds are, especially bought seeds, are extremely, hold on, Dactyl. My wife, she helped me garden this year. They're they say 90% viability. They're darn close to 100%. It's very rare for me to have a seed that I bought from someplace that doesn't come up. Watering is done entirely by hand. I use rainwater. His recommendation is to fill buckets and let the sun heat them. Watering isn't done on the leaves, it's done underneath the leaves by pouring water directly onto the root of the plant. And harvesting, it's a succession gardening mechanism, which means that as your harvest completes, you tear the plant out, put more compost in the hole, and plant something else. And you get multiple crops out of each one of these squares every year.
More compost or more of a mix?
Just compost. The rest of the mix stays. The compost you keep renewing because where the nutrients are.